All right, so as a student, you may be required to create an academic poster which you would use to go to a conference or maybe to speak about your work in a final year project interview, or maybe you've been invited into an industry to speak about the work you've been doing and you want to create a poster to again help you with that discussion. Whatever is the situation, I want to show you how you can create such an academic poster using PowerPoint, which is a very common software that a lot of students are already quite used to. So let's sit back and relax as I show you how to do this. As we get started with this video, we're going to follow Stephen, who is an undergraduate project student who is required to create a poster that he needs to present to his assessors in a poster viva environment where they need to assess what he's doing. And so the organizers of the poster have given some specifications that Stephen needs to follow in terms of how he goes about creating the poster. So let's look at some specifications. So the first thing here is that the poster size has to be an A1 poster, and that means the width of it is 60 cm and the height of it is 84 cm. The other requirement is that your poster design has to be in portrait mode, as against being in landscape mode. And then the organizers have also said that you must restrict yourself to about 28 point area of font size. So Stephen is able to create the model very well. And again, there are templates that are given to help with that design. We're going to show how he can start from scratch, but it makes sense to work with a template that the organizers of this project has already provided. And so if you are watching this video on YouTube, then please look at the description section of this video where you can download that template that Stephen is going to use. If you're also part of Stephen's university, in this case University of Greenwich, then do download this from the project course module page, which again you find from the intranet within the university. Now, a few things that need to be considered as regards tips that can help with Stephen in creating this. The first thing is that he has to avoid large block of solid dark color, especially black, which reduces legibility. So it's really important that you have a lot of white spaces on the poster so that in the end color imbalance will be prevented. The second thing is that you have to imagine the size of the text in a big structure format. So Stephen needs to think about it. Putting this poster is probably going to stand a distance of 1 meter away from him. So will he be able to read the text? And that leads to the idea that you have to have a minimum font size of about 28 point. Typically Arial will be fine, but you can use any other font. Now, it's essential when Stephen designed this poster that he used well-designed diagrams or images that would look very good on a poster, because the essence of a poster is really to create a visual instrument that you can use for the work. And so lengthy text will not be useful for what he wants to do. And then use images with the highest resolution, because again, when you print these posters, you want to look very good for the audience that you want to talk to. Other tips that he needs to think about when you're creating a poster is that Stephen needs to start by having sort of an introduction or a motivation for the work and also a conclusion. And then in between, you need to provide some information around the design of the project, the methodology, and some of the key results you find. It's recommended that Stephen uses bullet points to help with presentation of the text, because the essence of a poster really is to condense all your thoughts in a poster that can help you with discussing about the project. So this is really important. It's also a good idea to number your posted material in a sequential manner, to start from introduction onto the conclusion, so that the reader can follow nicely your thought pattern. If you can't number them, then use arrows to point out which section leads next in the work. Now, it's essential to also think about where you've quoted somebody's work as academics, you need to reference that work. So some kind of references will be essential, but it's not really super important when you're creating a poster, because the essence of a poster is to help with an instrument, something people need to talk with. And so referencing may not always be essential when you're standing from the poster and talking about the work. And finally, you have to show off your work. And so whatever graphic artistry that he's going to use to create this is essential. And so that's the initial point that we need to make as we get into this. All right, so as Stephen begins to work on this, the first thing to do when you want to create a poster is to have a little bit of a text file, a Microsoft Word based file that captures the essence of all that you want to talk about. And so let's look at what Stephen has already created to help him with his project. And so if we look here, this is the detail that Stephen wants to use. So currently he's working on the project that says application of a numerical method in assessing the viability of a 3D printed stent. So this is something from engineering. So he would have to put the author name, the supervisor's name, a little bit of information around the background. You need to provide some kind of background when you're creating a poster, so that will be essential. And then the aim and the objective of the project. This is again essential, because the person reading your poster need to know what the aim and the objectives are. And here he has tried to capture what the aim and the objective of his project would be. And then there's another section where he talks about methodology. You have to always have a methodology section in every academic work that you're trying to present. And so in this case, he decided, okay, a simple word, but then decided to use a flowchart. A flowchart is a useful way to present the method that you're using in the work. And in this kind of numerical study that Stephen is working on, the poster, the flowchart is beautiful in doing that. And then some of the specific implementation that he wants to present. So again, we've got here a little bit of information around the numerical work that he wants to do, how he wants to go about doing it. And then more importantly, you have the result. So it's got two categories of results. So the virtual domain and simulation results, and another set of results, which are graphical plots. And then finally a conclusion. So whatever poster you're trying to do, it makes sense to have this framework in mind where you're presenting these structures in place in order to get your poster properly designed. If you look very well on this, you'll find that there's quite a lot of pictures as against text, and that's the essence of a poster. It's really an instrument for discussion. And because the reader may not have all the time to read individually all the text that you've got, it makes sense to have more pictures than text. What rule of thumb I always recommend to my students is to have 60% of the content of your poster being a picture, an image of some kind, and about 40% or even less being a text. Because people who are standing in front of your poster may not have all the time to read the text, but they can always look at the pictures because they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The next step is to take this framework and put into a PowerPoint to now finalize the design of the poster. So when you come into PowerPoint, this will be a template that he's going to use later on, but we're not going to do that. So let's just start by creating a new PowerPoint. So we're going to start with a blank document. So clearly this blank document has a design layout that you don't want to. So what we want is to change this to the A1 poster size. So what you need to do is to go onto the design module, design tab, and here there is the slide size. So you don't want to use the standard PowerPoint slide size, you have to use a custom. And when you go to the custom again, you come back here, there is a custom at the base there. All you need to do, so this is in CM, change the width to 60 and then the height to 84. So this is the size for an A1 poster size. If you have a different poster size, then you change those numbers also accordingly. Again, we want the slides to be in portrait. This is a requirement for this poster design as against being in landscape. You want that, and then you click OK. And then you can decide to maximize, whichever option you choose is fine. You could right click on this and look at grid and spacing. So I like to show the grids behind the text so that you can use that to orient whatever you're trying to do. So I will activate display grid on the screen because it will not be selected, and then you can decide how many grids you want for every 0.5 cm. So we've got a framework in A4. Now, the other thing to then do is if you go into the Insert tab under the shapes, so you can start by creating the structure that you want to use for this poster. So we'll start with the rectangle. Normally at the top, I would have probably the heading section, and I prefer to set it to no fill. Okay, and then maybe put the text to be that. So this will be my heading section. Again, you can decide however you want to do that. And then while pressing down Control and Shift, I can go drag that to the end and release. So that will create a duplicate. That will be for my conclusion. Okay, maybe I could make it a little bit smaller. And then the other things that are worth noting is that you probably want maybe some introductory section as well to your work. So again, no fill and text. And then after that, you then would want to have maybe a columnar arrangement. It makes sense to have a columnar arrangement. So in this case, we have two columns, one for the methodology. So here we have maybe one column for the aims and objective. So we could have a second column where we talk about the methodology of the work. And then on the right side here, while pressing down Shift and Control, you go to the right, you can then have a column that represents the results. So essentially, this is sort of what you want to have in terms of how Stephen goes about presenting poster. So other things to bear in mind here is that now you've got the framework. If you want to introduce text, then you go to the top here and then look at text. So here could now be the main text. So now with the main text put in here, we need to change this to 28. And then we also want to change it to Arial. So we'll sort of have the main text that will go in there. So probably this will be your title. And then from there, you could then look at what you have here. So now this other bits, so pressing down shift and dragging. So if we go here, you can add some color now to these headings. So here I'm going to put a fill, maybe some color like that with a black fill for this heading, and then maybe another heading here. So basically you press down shift and control and drag this, and where you want to release. So this could be the project background. And then similarly, you can then create other duplicates for other places that you want, so whether you want it here and maybe something there. So this kind of structured arrangement already gives you the way the poster is going to look. Like I said, Steven already has an existing poster which you can download in the description section of this video. So let's go and use that poster. So now this is the poster template that Steven already has, and it contains all the essential information that would want to use. So the university that Steven belongs to is University of Greenwich. So you get the poster of your university or your institution and put them. And then the next things we have here would be the name of the student supervisors and the project. So let's get that information. So this is the text, the Microsoft Word file. So we'll just copy, and this is why it's essential to have that information. So we'll copy the title and then go back here and then select order by creating Control A to select. So you do a paste special. So paste special. And the essence of pasting special is that it will help you. So you use an unformatted text. So an unformatted text means that it will then inherit the text that is evident, that is existing in this template. So always paste it as an unformatted text, so you can move it around. And that's the title. If you want it to be a little bigger, so you could just go here and increase the size of the text so it'll be a little bit bigger. And then the other bit is the student name. So let's call him student surname. And then his banner ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So university will give you a registration number. So this is your student ID. And then we could hear, okay, so we've got that information. It looks okay from this top end of system. Now the next thing is that we need to think about the background and the motivation. Again, Steven has already thought about that, and he's provided some text. So we're just going to copy the text that he was. If you don't have any pre-existing text, you can type directly into this environment, and then you got your text going. So we'll just paste that information. Clearly it doesn't look good. It's not big enough because it's only size 18. So we can just start increasing it until we fill it up. Okay, so it's probably just around 28, and that's fine. So it's perfect. And at the beginning, it comes with this bullet point, which we don't want, so you can take away the bullet point. So you've got introduction. Now, in terms of the aims and objectives, again, you would have prepared this text ahead of time. You copy it. If you don't have it, you can come in here and paste it and type directly. So we'll Control V to paste, and then we'll select all that and increase the font size. So that looks okay. And we have the text looking about right. So we can take away the bullet points to make it look okay the way it should be. Then in terms of the methodology for this, so if we look at what Steven has in his plan. Now, he has a first part. It says, okay, the project uses numerical methods in line with the flow chart. So we can paste that information here and then make sure that we have it also looking at 28. So that's fine. We take away the font. So that looks okay. So again, it makes sense to have your pictures in one archive. If you don't have it in an archive, you can also have it in an environment like this. So we'll just copy the picture. So if I copy, Control C to copy, or right click to copy. So within PowerPoint, it makes sense when you try to paste it as special. So if you go to paste special, okay, and then a lot of options will come out for you. So one of which would be enhanced meta file. I recommend that you use an enhanced meta file when working inside Microsoft Word, because the PowerPoint or any Microsoft software, because this is a very lightweight but high resolution image file type that is effective for pasting the data inside a Microsoft Word environment. In this case, we're using PowerPoint. So we'll paste that an enhanced meta file, and obviously it's quite tiny. All we need to do is to enlarge it to fit into the space that we want. Now, the next thing we want to do is, how are you going to implement the project? What is the plan in terms of how you want to implement the project? And this is really where you decide. It's a little bit like the methodology, but it's just more some aspects of the work that you want to talk about. And so how is Steven visualizing what to do here? So basically in the methodology, so he has two aspects to it. So he wants to talk about how to set up the virtual test bed of the model that he's working with, and then how he's also going to extract the data. And so there's a method of how he's extracting the data, because later on, towards the end, he's going to speak about the data that is generated, how he's going to abstract that. So that could be the way you need to go about it. So basically, you start here, copy that in, and then paste it in that environment. Okay, and then again, make sure that it's up to the font size of 28 because you want it to look visible and legible when someone is standing about 1 meters away. And then we can now copy that image and then come back here and paste it as an enhancement file. So we've pasted it as an enhancement file, and that's one of the data sets that Stephen has generated. And then there's a little space around here that he can go and put some further information. So what do we have next? So here he has some further information around how he actually, so we'll copy that data and paste it in that same environment. So that will all be within. So then again, this is what you're doing when you're trying to create a poster. You're essentially assembling a lot of images to aid you for your design, for your discussion subsequently. So we've got a little bit of data here to show how he's going to extract certain properties. Again, for your project, it will be different. So we'll go back here and see some information. So there's an information that he's got here. All right, so we need to probably add it here. And when you want to add a text within the box, like we did before, you just go there and click text box and then draw that text box in that environment and paste your data. Okay, so you paste it inside that data and then you can move it around. Now we want to make sure that it fills up to the 28 size that we're working with. So that text can stay next to that image, again, explaining what is going on with that image. So on the right hand side of this, we already have the poster taking shape, most of it being pictures, everything looking correct, and we're happy with that data. Now, that's on the left side. On the right hand side here, we've got two possible outcomes. Again, posters should have a lot of result in them, because that's the sense. You want to be able to speak about your poster result using a poster. So we've got the first part here. So what is Stephen working on? So he has the first part, which is called the key results, and these are virtual domain and simulation results. So we just paste it in here as key result. So again, you make sure that you increase the font to the right size. So key result number 1 will be the domain and the simulation. And what does he have? So in his domain, he's got 6 candidate designs of his stand. So again, we want to put it in this environment. You paste it in there, it comes into this environment, and then you want to make sure that this is 28. Okay, so that looks all right, and you have 28. You adjust it and it stays in place like that. The image, which he has already formatted and put together, maybe in PowerPoint or wherever, you can bring that image here, and so that goes into that space. So that talks about the data that he has obtained. Now the next thing is the simulation results. So we copy that data and again paste it in this environment. Again, it's too much, so we change it to 28 to reduce the size to make sure that it fits in within that space, and then this is okay. So we go back to the text file that he has, the second data set, with Ctrl+C to copy and then paste it in that environment and then stretch it so that it fills the whole width. Okay. So this is interesting because if you notice what's happening here, so it's got his data filling the whole width, but it's filtering into the next page, to the next column. That's no problem because these columns are not set in stone. They are flexible. So all you need to do is to draw a box around that and then use the arrow button to move it down into space. So that's that first information. And then you click on there and then drag this bit down to make sure that you have it looking just about all right, and then we can move this bit up again. So clearly we want that in a box, so we can also move it down so it fits within a box. This box or block arrangement is really good when you're designing a poster because it means that the user would be able to focus on certain parts. It can help with your discussion. So for example, in this instance, you're talking about the key results number 1. You could easily focus the attention of the reader on that section, talk about it, and then you move into the next box. Else, people will be wandering around not knowing where things are across the domain. So that's another way to help the reader in structuring your presentation and your discussion. So the second outcome, which he wants to talk about, is the results, the model values, and their ranking. So again, we go back here and we paste that information, select all of that, and then make sure you get it up to 28 to look right. Okay, so we've got the first set of data. So we'll copy the text that he has provided. This is why a major part of doing your poster is really the pre-planning of creating your text, how you want it to be. And then if that text is not fitting in during the work you're doing, then that's fine. You can move things around and it will be fine. Okay, so that's the first data set. So we can then copy the graph that he has in mind that is already formatted and then put it in that same environment. So it goes into this space, try and drag it so that it fills up that space, and we're happy with that. Okay, now the last bit is again some text, but let's get the image first. So if we get the image, because the image is not very wide, so we can position it however we want. I'll probably position it on the right hand side here, and then just stretch it a bit. So, and then that's fine. And we can then copy that data and paste it in that environment. That's how the text would be. So this text will be speaking about the image that is here. Essentially, we have all parts of the poster except probably the conclusion. So again, we'll go back and see what conclusion that he has. So we'll just copy that information and paste it here in the conclusion section. And again, make sure that we can fill it in so that we have up to 28. So if we then take out that, so everything looks okay in the poster. So if we look at the original part, so that looks a good enough poster, for Stephen, who is working on the project. Again, there may be other things that you need to add. So if there are sponsors to the project, you may want to put images of, their logo somewhere in it. You may decide to create a section where you can also put maybe references. But the main features of most academic posters are essentially here. So you've got the aim, the objectives, the methodology, and the result that how you implemented your data and the key results. That's the basic feature of most academic posters, and this has been nicely done using PowerPoint. If you are interested in creating this sort of posters in a bespoke software like Canva, which is an online cloud-based graphic design tool, then this video may be the video worth considering. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.